All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So we're like just over 20 days away from the start of the NFL draft. In other words, the soft deadline for the Aaron Rodgers trade here. And I gotta be honest, at this point in time, again, early to mid-April, it really seems like Joe Douglas and Brian Gutekunst are just sitting across the table from one another, thinking to themselves, who's going to blink first? Who is going to be the one that caves? And up to this point, let's be honest, the Green Bay Packers are playing hardball. There's two different schools of thought. From the Green Bay Packers side of it, they're thinking, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Of course, he's a good quarterback. He plays the most, important position on the field, but he's a Packer legend. He's an NFL legend. So what if Jordan Love's in-house? We're not going to give him away for like nothing. And then on the Jets end, it's like, okay, who else in the NFL is going to take Rodgers and that contract off your hands? Nobody. The Jets aren't, quote unquote, operating in bad faith, in the words of Joe Douglas, when the topic of Lamar Jackson came up. It's not like the Jets are trying to undercut Green Bay. It's not like, they're out here trying to pretend to negotiate with other quarterbacks. They've made it clear. Aaron Rodgers is their guy. They had an opportunity to go after Derek Carr. They didn't. They had an opportunity to go after Jimmy Garoppolo heavily. They didn't. Lamar Jackson, former MVP, a literal superstar quarterback, requested a trade from the Baltimore Ravens. Jets aren't interested. Why? Because they are deep in talks with the Green Bay Packers. So again, and I said this in a video, I think it was a couple days ago here, it's not really a question of if this is going to get done. It's more so a matter of when it gets done. And we've had some recent comments from Joe Douglas. We've had recent comments from Brian Gutekunst about the situation. Obviously, Joe Douglas at the WFAN fan event with Boomer Esiason, essentially saying that Aaron Rodgers is coming. And then Gutekunst had some really intriguing comments, to say the least, regarding the situation. He does not, he's either A, putting up a really, really good poker face, or B, completely calm, in no rush at all, playing hardball and standing his ground here. He's been on record of saying sooner rather than later, right? He wants to get this done. Aaron wants to get this done. The Jets want to get this done. But at the same time, he's not going to turn around and just trade Rodgers for, a minimal price. In BG's words, he said, as long as it takes. As long as it takes, insinuating that he is fine waiting until post-draft. He actually said it's a whole different scenario. If we get beyond the draft, then everything changes. Compensation changes. In other words, pretty much saying, hey, you know what? We want to move on from Rodgers, and I know you guys want him too, but just because the draft is, again, in a couple of weeks here, doesn't mean we're trading away for a late round pick, or we're going to give you this awesome, sweet deal, and we're going to be the ones getting gypped here. So I think, again, at least from the Packers side, from a public perspective, the Green Bay Packers front office is not backing down. So this is kind of my take on the situation. If I look at it from the Jets side of it, I want this thing done as soon as possible, right? I just want my quarterback in-house. The offseason training program starts April 17th. I don't think it's looking like it's going to get done before that. Who knows? Maybe that changes. Maybe something comes out, as I'm uploading this video. Who knows? Everything is up in the air. But if I'm the Jets, it just makes the most sense. You have the contract figured out. Now that Rodgers is officially a member of the Jets, that could potentially change the public or the free agent view, free agent perspective on the team, potentially adding more guys. You know exactly what the cap situation is going to look like for this season, and now you can kind of operate and map out what the future plans are for the team in regards to, continuing to add veteran players. You know exactly what you're going to be giving up to Green Bay, so you're not going to be in, you're essentially avoiding a panic situation on draft night. You're eliminating potential roadblocks that could arise on draft night if Green Bay does in fact throw you a curveball. I mean, you don't know what Green Bay's thinking at this point. They could be wanting a second round pick, but maybe they only have their eyes on like 3 players. If those 3 players are gone, maybe Green Bay picks up the phone on draft night and says, you know what? We're fine waiting until the summer because all of our players that we wanted are gone. We just don't know if we're going to get that curveball. So ideally for the Jets, from a money perspective, from a potential free agent perspective, from a draft perspective, from a potential headache situation, I think it just makes all the sense in the world to get this done before the draft. Now, if you flip it and you look at it from Green Bay's perspective, first things first, we have to factor in the cap. Now, there's a pretty big debate on whether or not the Packers should pay Rodgers the full $40+ million this season against the cap, trading him by June 1st. If it gets beyond June 1st, that $40 million would drop significantly for this season, but they would have to pay the rest of it in 2024. So really the question is, do you want to pay it all off now and take a massive $40+ million cap hit for the season, but alternatively be done with it and kind of you're home free after the season? Or do you split it up into 2 off seasons? You're spending less this year by a pretty big margin, but the downside is now you're spending $20+ million on Rodgers in 2024. Either way, the Packers are going to have to spend the $40+ million. It's just a matter of what the Packers, or really how they want to split up this money. So I think for me, when I'm looking at the offseason moves that the Packers have made, they haven't really had that blockbuster deal. They haven't handed out a mega deal. There's been a real heavy emphasis on re-signing a lot of their players that were scheduled to be free agents, filling out the roster, adding depth overall. They aren't really in the market of just, we haven't seen them hand out that $15 million annual contract, trade for the superstar player. They haven't, as far as my knowledge is concerned, they haven't really been involved in a ton of superstar top end tier 1 free agents, or even trades for that matter. Green Bay just hasn't really been there. So I'm looking at some of their roster moves that they've made so far, and also players that they've lost. Alan Lazard, 4-year contract to the Jets. Jerron Reed to the Seattle Seahawks. They lost Tunyon to the Bears. Dean Lowry to the Vikings. Adrian Amos, Mason Crosby, Mercedes Lewis, Randall Cobb. Those 4 guys are still out on the free agent market. If I'm Green Bay and I'm looking at how this season is expected to go, and I'm rolling with Jordan Love, that is 100% going to be a fact. I think the best move, if I was a member of the Packers organization, is to trade Rodgers now, acquire some capital for this draft, acquire future capital in 2024, take on that $40+ million cap hit and get it over with. That way we don't have the Aaron Rodgers headache for, multiple years here. We're not delegating a section of our cap. Granted, the cap is scheduled to go up, so you could make an argument in the grand scheme of things, maybe Green Bay, it would be the smarter play to wait until, post June 1st. Because in essence, you're not going to be paying as big of a percentage of the cap, if that makes any sort of sense. But again, I think I would opt to get rid of the $40 million, get rid of the headache, be done with Aaron Rodgers, get a pick or picks this year, get future compensation, potentially a player that's still up in the air, and try to add guys that you really, really like through the draft with the extra draft pick from the New York Jets. You move forward into this year, and by the end of the year, yes, you did take a step backwards by eating this entire $40 million Rodgers cap hit and not really making the splash move, but in essence, you're taking 1 step back to take 2 steps forward, because now we're going to have more cap space because Rodgers is done. That contract is off our books completely. We are good. We have a plethora of young talent already because we had the extra draft pick the previous class. We have a extra draft pick this year because we pulled off the trade for the Jets, and we are getting that, I'm assuming would be the comp pick, depending on either how the Jets do or, how long Rodgers plays. Whatever it is, you are getting extra draft capital. And on top of all of those things, you now have a full season in the books for Jordan Love. We know we have a better idea, a clearer picture on whether or not he can be the guy entering his 5th year. So again, for me, it is somewhat of a step back this season, but by doing that, it just frees you up in the future moving forward with cap space, with young players, with the draft picks, with just, again, a better understanding of what Jordan Love is at the quarterback position. I think for me, that would be the most ideal route if I was a member of the Packers organization, if I was a Packer fan. But that's just me personally. I'm not sitting here saying I'm right or anything like that. That's just my opinion, and I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.